San Diego Global Knowledge University.
Introduction. Hello. Welcome. Studying generations helps us understand how society, markets, and organizations change. Each generation grows up in its own historical, economic, political, and technological context. That context shapes their values, behaviors, what they buy, and how they relate to work, school, and their communities. Among today's generations, the baby boomers stand out because of their large size and the big changes they caused in almost every part of life. Since they were born after World War II, they have helped expand education systems, grow consumer markets, change the workplace, push technology forward, and change what it means to grow old. But to understand the baby boom, we must do more than know when they were born. We need to see how the age mix in a population affects decisions by governments, companies, and institutions. We also need to see how a generation's traits change social needs and organizational strategies. In this chapter, we will study where the baby boom came from and how it evolved. We will look at its main demographic, economic, and cultural traits, and its influence on consumer behavior, the job market, innovation, globalization, and lifelong learning. We will also look at the challenges organizations and public policies face as this generation ages and lives alongside newer generations. Studying a generation is not just about a group born at the same time. It helps us see how generational shifts are a strategic tool to predict social change, design better public policies, build better business strategies, and make smarter decisions in a world that keeps changing. Let's begin. One of the most important demographic events of the 20th century was the rise of the baby boom generation, made up of people born between 1946 and 1964. This generation was not only the largest of its time, but it also changed the economy, markets, organizations, and how governments plan public policies. To see why they matter, we first need a basic idea from demography: the age structure of a population. Age structure shows how a country's people are spread across age groups. At first, it may look like just a statistic, but it is really one of the main signs that helps predict social, economic, and market changes. Think about this example. If many more children are born in one period than before, that generation will need daycare, schools, teachers, medical services, clothes, food, and places to play. As those people grow, their needs change. Later, they will need colleges, jobs, homes, cars, financial services, and eventually specialized healthcare and pensions. This means the age makeup of a population determines which goods and services will be in demand at each stage. During the 20th century, birth rates in the United States changed a lot. In the years of the Great Depression, families had far fewer children because of economic hardship. But after World War II, it was the opposite. Economic recovery, more jobs, and social optimism caused a big rise in births. This period of population growth is called the baby boom. Then, around 1965, births fell again, and smaller generations followed. But when the baby boomers reached adulthood and started their own families, births rose again. This new increase was called the echo boom, or Generation Y, because it was a demographic echo of the original baby boom. It's important to note this didn't happen only in the United States. Now we need to see how these changes affect organizations, the job market, and business strategies. There is no perfect mix of ages for a workplace. The right balance depends on the type of company, its customers, and its goals. For example, an organization that serves older adults will likely need more experienced staff who understand that group's needs. On the other hand, tech-focused companies may benefit from having more young professionals. The key is not to reach a set percentage of workers from each generation. The key is to use generational diversity as a competitive advantage. When people with different experiences, ages, and ways of thinking work together, you get what some experts call creative tension. Though that phrase might sound negative, it actually means something positive. A respectful clash of ideas that helps look at problems from many angles and make better decisions. The most successful organizations know that innovation rarely happens when everyone thinks the same. Mixing the experience of older workers with the creativity of younger ones often leads to stronger, better-founded solutions. But baby boomers' influence goes beyond the workplace. This generation also changed cultural and social patterns in big ways. One clear change is how people see aging. In older generations, reaching a certain age often meant retirement and a quiet life. Baby boomers redefined that idea. Today, many people keep working, learning, traveling, starting new projects, or even changing careers in their 50s or 60s. So being older is no longer always linked to being inactive. It's now seen as a new stage for personal and professional growth. This cultural shift has affected both older and younger generations. You can see changes in lifestyles, clothing, leisure activities, and social participation among older people who now do things that used to be seen as youth activities. From an organizational view, another trait of the baby boom is a strong push for independence. This generation developed a critical view of authority. Instead of following orders just because someone is in charge, they wanted to know the reasons and take part in decisions. This led to less authoritarian organizations where participation, teamwork, and idea sharing became more important. Linked to this is another value, individualism. Not as selfishness, but as the wish to build a personal life plan, make individual choices, and shape situations to personal interests. These two traits, independence and individualism, also shaped later generations, like Generation X and Millennials, who inherited a lot of that need for autonomy, participation, and personal growth. Naturally, big social changes create different opinions. People often say baby boomers are more focused on consumption, individual success, or on changing traditional values. But we must see these trends in a wider historical context. At the same time new forms of consumption grew, movements also appeared that pushed social responsibility, business ethics, sustainability, and civic engagement. In short, social values kept evolving and finding new balances as the needs of society changed. Another key point to understand about this generation is their relationship with learning. One big challenge for baby boomers is staying up to date with fast technology change. Organizations need more digital skills, new tool use, and the ability to adapt to constant change. So professional updating is no longer optional. It's a permanent need. But tech updating is only part of the challenge. Many people, as they move through their careers, find new interests and chances that lead them to change jobs, start businesses, or specialize in fields quite different from where they began. One of the baby boomers' main legacies is making lifelong learning normal. Unlike previous generations that saw education as something that ended in youth, baby boomers pushed the idea that learning should continue throughout life. Now it is common for people to return to university after years of work, take graduate programs, earn certifications, build new tech skills, or study subjects far from their original training. This change deeply affects how we see professional development. Ongoing training is now a key factor to stay competitive, adapt to change, and take advantage of new opportunities in a knowledge-based economy. After World War II, many countries saw similar birth increases. Even where growth was smaller, people who grew up then shared common experiences from big technological, economic, and cultural changes. Why does knowing a generation's size matter? Because when one generation is much larger than others, it changes society's needs. For example, in the 1950s, the US education system faced heavy pressure because so many baby boomer children entered school. New schools had to be built, facilities expanded, and many more teachers hired. Later, the opposite happened. When baby boomers finished basic education, schools began getting Generation X, a much smaller group. So many schools had to adjust their capacity again. Decades later, with the echo boom, education systems faced crowding again. These cycles show that demographic change directly affects school infrastructure, public services, and government planning. But the effects go beyond the social sphere. Companies must also anticipate population shifts. A clear example is the music industry. As the teen population fell, companies stopped focusing only on young consumers and began selling music favored by baby boomers in new formats like CDs and later digital platforms. Other companies kept targeting only young people and ignored that the market was aging. As a result, many saw sales fall. This shows a key idea. Demography is not just counting how many people live in a country. Its real value is predicting how people's needs will change and how organizations must adapt. So far, we have looked at how the baby boom began and why its size changed the population structure. Next, we will examine how these traits shaped consumer behavior, the job market, and strategic decisions in organizations. One of the baby boom's most notable traits is seeing learning as something that lasts a lifetime. In earlier generations, it was common to think education ended after university or when someone started working. After that, work experience was the main source of knowledge, and few returned to classrooms. The baby boom changed that. For this group, learning stopped being only a youth stage and became a continuous activity. Professional updating, new skills, and even studying very different subjects became part of life plans for millions. This change is largely a response to how fast technology, markets, and organizations evolve. Skills learned at the start of a career can become outdated years later. So staying relevant means constant updating to add new knowledge and adapt to changing conditions. Lifelong learning is not only university degrees or graduate studies. It also includes short courses, professional certificates, continuing education, extension programs, and even activities for personal growth like studying art, culture, or languages. This willingness to keep learning helps baby boomers stay active longer in the labor market. But lifelong learning is not only about new technical skills, it also means learning to understand a more connected world. For much of the 20th century, organizations competed mainly inside their national markets. Today, globalization has changed that. Now even small and medium companies take part in international markets, compete with firms in other countries, and serve customers from many cultures. So knowing other languages, cultures, economic systems, and business ways is now a must for modern professionals. This change also affects travel. Travel used to be mostly for fun. Now it is also a way to broaden views, learn about other social systems, and understand global markets. Being exposed to different cultures strengthens adaptability, cultural sensitivity, and the ability to build professional ties globally. From this view, lifelong learning goes beyond school into a continuous exploration of the world. That helps explain why many baby boomers keep studying, traveling, starting projects, or exploring new interests, even after decades of work experience. Another feature of this generation is changing the old idea of retirement. For much of the 20th century, retirement meant the end of productive life. Baby boomers helped redefine this. It's now common to find people who, after a long career, start new activities as consultants, entrepreneurs, university teachers, advisors, or volunteers. So retirement is no longer just the end of economic participation. It can be a time of personal and professional reinvention. This also ties to longer life expectancy and better health. Many people keep their intellectual abilities for decades after the usual retirement age, letting them keep contributing experience and knowledge. That is why volunteering has grown in importance for this generation. Beyond being an act of giving, it's a way to share knowledge, strengthen social organizations, and stay active in the community. Years of work experience can become a huge resource for schools, nonprofits, foundations, and local projects. From a social view, an aging population also brings big challenges for governments. As the number of older people grows, infrastructure for this group must be strengthened. This means planning recreational centers, cultural spaces, sports facilities, specialized health services, and programs that support active, healthy aging. It is not just about medical needs. It is also important to create chances for older people to keep learning, be socially active, and develop personal projects. Another big challenge is balancing fast technology with human development. New tech has changed almost every part of daily life. But real progress happens only when technology is combined with values, critical thinking, creativity, and social awareness. Technology should be a tool that serves people, not a replacement for human relationships. That is why broad education still needs arts, humanities, ethics, and social sciences, areas that build skills hard to replace with technology. Finally, understanding generational differences is a strategic tool for organizations and society. Each generation develops values, experiences, and ways of seeing the world from the historical context they live in. Recognizing these differences helps improve communication, reduce intergenerational conflicts, and design better public policies, business strategies, and education processes. Instead of seeing generational differences as a source of conflict, we can turn them into an opportunity to bring together experience, knowledge, and fresh ideas. This strengthens decision-making and helps organizations grow. So far, we have looked at the origin, traits, and influence of the baby boom on society and organizations. Now we will cover 3 parts of their legacy: globalization, using human capital, and the challenges of demographic change, technology as a door to globalization. Although baby boomers were not born in the digital era, they showed a strong ability to adapt to tech change. Computers, the internet, smartphones, and many digital tools changed how we work, communicate, and get information. This generation saw those changes and learned to use technology to solve daily problems, boost work performance, and stay connected. Before the internet spread, television already played a key role for this generation. For the first time, people could follow international events almost in real time, see other cultures, and widen their view of the world from home. This constant exposure raised interest in understanding other societies and joining a more international world. So technology not only made communication easier, it also helped shape a more open view of the world and a sense that problems and opportunities go beyond national borders. A generation with an international view, baby boomers are one of the most traveled generations in modern history. Better transport and communication let millions travel for study, work, or pleasure, strengthening ties between countries and sharing knowledge. As a result, many organizations moved from competing only at home to taking part in international markets. Today, even medium-sized companies need to understand consumers from different cultures, build ties with other countries, and adapt products for diverse markets. In this setting, intercultural knowledge is no longer just an advantage, it is a necessary professional skill. While English remains widely used in international business, knowing a second or third language is a chance to improve communication, understand other cultures better, and open up professional opportunities. Aging as an opportunity for society. One of the biggest changes driven by this generation is how we rethink aging. For decades, retirement marked the end of productive life. But longer lifespans and better health show many people keep their abilities for many years after the usual retirement age. For this reason, many organizations now see great value in keeping the knowledge of experienced workers. Far from blocking innovation, experience can be a strategic resource to train new professionals, advise teams, and help make better decisions. So part-time work, consulting, mentoring, teaching, entrepreneurship, and volunteering are growing in importance. These options let people keep contributing knowledge while staying active in society. Collaboration between generations. A main challenge for organizations is integrating workers from different generations. It's normal to see differences in tech use, problem solving, or how people read situations. But these differences are not a permanent conflict. Each generation brings its own strengths. Experienced professionals offer strategic vision built from years of practice, while younger generations bring digital skills, creativity, and ease with new tech. When organizations combine these approaches, they get better results than choosing only experience or only innovation. Real advantage comes when experience and tech knowledge work together. The value of accumulated knowledge. A society that wastes the experience of older generations loses an important part of its intellectual capital. So schools, businesses, and governments must create ways to pass knowledge between generations. Invite experienced professionals to share real cases, build mentorship programs, strengthen experience-based learning, and promote interaction between students and experts. These steps help knowledge transfer. This way, experience stops being only an individual path and becomes a shared asset that supports society's development. The role of public policy's population aging also requires changes in government policy. It is not enough to expand pensions or medical services. Policies must promote active aging with programs for continuing education, culture, recreation, entrepreneurship, volunteering, and social participation. At the same time, companies should adapt work models to use older workers' experience with flexible hours, hybrid work, special projects, or knowledge transfer programs. Understanding demography to anticipate the future. One main lesson from studying the baby boom is that demographic change helps predict economic and social shifts. Generation size directly affects demand for housing, schools, hospitals, jobs, infrastructure, financial services, and social security systems. So knowing a population's age structure is a strategic tool for governments, businesses, and schools. Those who study these trends early can prepare to meet future needs more effectively. Studying the baby boom shows demography is more than population statistics. Each generation reflects the historical, economic, technological, and cultural context it lived in. Understanding these differences helps explain market changes, predict shifts in consumer behavior, design better public policies, and improve how organizations are run. In a world that keeps changing, the real advantage is not just knowing the present, but learning to read demographic trends and use them for strategic decisions. Conclusion. Studying the baby boom shows demographic changes have a much deeper impact than people often realize. Generation size not only changes who lives in a country, but also affects demand for goods and services, how job markets evolve, business strategies, and public policy making. In this chapter, we saw baby boomers grow up during economic expansion, tech advances, and big social change. That shaped a generation marked by lifelong learning, the search for independence, active participation in change, and a more global view of the world. These traits changed how people consume, work, learn, and interact inside organizations. We also saw that living with different generations is a key challenge for today's institutions. Rather than seeing generational differences as conflict, organizations should use them as a chance to mix experience, accumulated knowledge, and innovation, boosting creativity, adaptability, and competitiveness. Likewise, population aging brings new challenges for governments, businesses, and schools. Using older generations' knowledge, promoting lifelong learning, and designing policies for active aging will be essential to meet the needs of longer-lived societies. Finally, studying the baby boom shows demography is not just statistics. It is a strategic field that helps predict trends and guide decisions. Looking at how generations change helps explain how people, markets, and organizations evolve, and how these changes shape a nation's economic and social development. In a constantly changing world, this view is an essential tool for those who want to understand the present and prepare for the future.
San Diego Global Knowledge University, Education Beyond Boundaries.